What's up, YouTube? I'm Jay, this is Crooked Eye Comics. In today's video, I just wanted to go over really fast purple labels. Right here, I have a Marvel Features #1. You have the Defenders. Now, I believe the Defenders is going to be coming most likely the third Doctor Strange. Seems like it lines up. Maybe a little sooner than that. Maybe a little later. But I think everybody has this misconception about, or at least a lot of people do, where we're avoiding purple labels. Me personally, as long as you know this is locked in at a 6.5, right? So I like some guarantees. Now, obviously, there's unknowns. It says the restoration includes small amount of color touch on the cover. So somewhere on this cover, I don't know where it is, because whoever did this did a very good job at actually covering it up, because I've looked this cover over and I can't find anything, which is going to get me in my next part. Just recently, I got bit with a huge book. Now, my really good friend is the one that did a trade with me for said book, and he had it for X amount of period of time. He didn't even know it was on there. I get the book, I had it for 2 months. I'm looking at it one day and I'm like, oh, I see a spot on the inside. I flipped it. Now, the book that I'm talking about is Fantastic Four 52. If you don't know, that's the first appearance of Black Panther. So this is a major key. This is something that you put on a shelf. It's not something that you're going to take down and you're going to go through and flip through. And, you might put one fingerprint on it and you might wreck $500, $300 of value. So it's not something that you're just going to look at necessarily every single day. And if you're me, I'm relatively new and looking for stuff. I'm not the best at it. I'm not a professional grader. I can't look at a cover and just say, oh, automatically this is a 9.6 or this is a 7.5 or whatever the case is. I'm getting better as I'm going, in just comparison, getting mass amounts of books. Now I'm starting to figure it out a little bit here and there, but it's still difficult even for somebody that's been doing it a long time. So when I'm looking at these, I can't tell you what they did to this, but what I did for you to make it a little easier. Now, this is a Tales to Astonish. I believe this is issue number 71. Now, this is a really bad copy, so I'm just going to show it here. You see, you got Major Chew. This book is probably a 0.5. You have the covers detached, so this is the insides. This is the cover. Now, it's an amazing cover. But for today's video, I purposely restored this book. Meaning I purposely took pen or a Sharpie and I touched it up on the cover. Now I'm going to show it here for a brief couple minutes. And what I want you to do is try to look at this cover and pinpoint, where did I put the restoration? I'll move it around. Remember, it's going to be Sharpie in locations, and I'll give you hints. It's only going to be in black spots. So just a few more seconds. I'll show major parts of the book. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to point out every single one of them to you. Some of them are easier than others. If you look at this cover, anybody in their right mind can look at the cover and say it's an abomination. It's one of the worst covers I've ever seen in my life. So anybody can look at that and be like, wow, that's, not the greatest of shape. But the things that are harder is to locate. I made 2 of them obvious. If you see the lines here that are coming down, I did the Sharpie on those lines. So I'll zoom in for you. Boom. Still, to the naked eye, sometimes those could go. Now, I also just randomly did marks down at the bottom there. If you see the darker spot, if you see a color break, if you see a lighter black, and then all of a sudden you see a darker black, 9 times out of 10, it could mean that it's going to have some type of restoration on it. I also did up in this area, which it's going to be hard, the M in comics above group there, I did the M on there as well. There is one more spot right here, this spot right there. I just added that to the book. That wasn't there, but it looks like it fits in. So if I show you that, now I'm by no means necessarily trying to show you this to make people add stuff to books or covers or anything like that. I'm just trying to make awareness of what to look for. One of the biggest things and easiest ways, if you crack it open, okay, we go on the inside. If you see the spots that's down there at the bottom, all those spots on the reverse side is where color was added to it, if that makes sense. So what I want to do is I don't want anybody to get bit. Now, luckily for me, it was a really good friend of mine that we did the original trade with. And what ended up happening was he was cool about it. We ended up discussing it. We ended up doing a separate trade basically for the value that I gave him for that book. I just got back in different books because I no longer wanted that book. It's like there was just something about it not being what I thought it was. It kind of just, I'm not mad at him because I know he didn't, know what was going on as well. But things happen, and it's like, I just want people to be more aware of what to look for and what to watch out for. But in that situation, I just didn't want the book just because not my feelings, but it's like, it was just a principle-based thing at that point. I just didn't even want to see that book anymore. So I just didn't want it. But there's nothing wrong with restored books to a certain extent. If I know what I'm getting myself into, like with this, it's a 6.5. You could always bust this out. You could potentially send it into, I believe CGC or CBCS does restoration removal. I don't know if both of them do it, but I know at least one of them does it. So what that would mean is they're going to take it, they would crack it out of this case. They would press and clean it if you want to add the additional money onto it. And then they would try to get the restoration off of there. And then they would regrade it. And then they would send it back to you. Sometimes it would still come back with the purple label. Sometimes they're able to remove it, and then the grade is just going to be lower. Like, for instance, if I send this in and do it, they might be able to fix it for me, but it might go from a 6.5 down to a 5 or a 5.5. So it might take it a little bit in the opposite direction because of whatever they had to do to remove that restoration off of there. But purple labels, you're able to get, see, this book's value here is, if it wasn't restored, would be about $250. I would say 200. Now with the purple label, it's around $100. So if you got a really good book that you want, there's no reason, it doesn't make sense in my head. Same thing with PGX grades. People have strayed away from PGX, and it doesn't make sense to me. I've seen books that are cheaper than a raw copy in a PGX grade, and I'm scratching my head like, what's going on here? Because if I could get the book locked in a particular grade, let's say it's got a PGX, it's graded by PGX, and it's at a 7. Raw, it goes for $100. If I could get it for $110, locked in at that grade, I could keep it that grade from this point going forward. With a raw one, you don't know what happens. Your son takes it out or something, he plays with it, he makes it a 6.5. The dog messes with it or something like, anything could happen. So it's like, if I got something locked in and it's in a hard shell and I know what I'm getting myself into, I'll take that any day of the week. So it's just something to keep an eye on. I will be having some more videos coming soon. But that's going to be it for today's video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. If you have, thank you very much. And we're going to have a lot of content rolling your way.